This podcast is not a substitute for a relationship with your mental health professional. Hey, family. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast with your girl, Andrea Wise-Brown. And if you have not become a part of the family as of yet, I'm going to ask you, what are you waiting for? Well, it's easy to do. All you have to do is click that little button, that subscribe button, so you can subscribe to the podcast, like the podcast, share the podcast, and if you feel froggy, then jump. Why don't you write a comment under the podcast if you're watching on YouTube so that you can ask me questions? You can tell me whether you agree with what I'm talking about or if you disagree. Come on, family. Come on, ride with me on this. So this week, y'all, we are talking about the hottest topic that's out right now, the P. Diddy trial in Cassie Ventura. Now, from my perspective, and this is a psychological perspective, I feel like I have a duty to educate everyone who want to know on why did Cassie stay? Why did she stay? That's what everyone wants to know. And this is the deal. People don't really want to know. People are out there judging her. So are you one of the people out there who's judging Cassie Ventura because she stayed with this man who she says is abusive, who she says made her have these sexual escapades with escorts, who she said she had sex for this man with other men and he recorded? I don't know what I could say and what I can't say, but and so you just want to know, through the period, through the sores in her mouth, through the beatings, you want to know, why did she stay? And are you one of those who actually listened or read the text messages, heard, because we didn't actually read the text messages. However, we were listening to different podcasts like Law and Crime. I like Law and Crime podcast because I feel like they have a representative who's there all the time. And so they're telling us, giving us play-by-play accounts of what's going on. So we knew what the text messages were. The Breakfast Club also, there's Lauren LaRosa. She's been in the courtroom every day. So she's been coming back, giving us play-by-play about, what the different, messages are that they have that have been going back and forth, the play-by-play while she's been in the courtroom. So we've been hearing from her so many people, so many news outlets. I think CNN, Laura Coates, she's an attorney and she's on either MSNBC or CNN, and she's been giving accounts of what happened, in the courtroom. And let me just tell y'all, I was in Jersey, New York City. I'm gonna slash it this past weekend. I was actually there last week. And I was literally about to go stand on that line so I could get up in that courtroom. But I didn't do it. You want to know why? Because I had to work. But if I did not have clients to see, I would have been Andrea Wise-Brown would have been in that courtroom, honey, because it was good and it was so juicy. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. I love truth. I love facts. So instead of me hearing about facts, from third party or second party, I want to hear it, from first account. I want to be in there. I want to hear it for myself. And that's probably why I love what I do as a psychotherapist, because I help people process their trauma, their pain through first account, through them telling me their truths. So I love to work with truths and facts. So anywho, this is probably, I'm going to say, maybe this is the courtroom shenanigans of the season. That's what I'm gonna say. And so everyone's talking about it. But I'm here to really let you know about the psychological implications of a woman who's been physically abused and who's been sexually abused. And from what she claims, allegedly, she's been almost, well, did she kind of positioned herself allegedly to be a sex slave. She said she was made to have these sexual acts or to do these sexual acts for P. Diddy. So she was sex trafficked. But I don't think you can be sex trafficked if you weren't transported across state lines. So I'm not sure if she would be the one who's supposed to be the victim of the sex trafficking. However, I do know that she's also wrapped up in the RICO case. It's a whole thing. But what I know for sure is she said that the man abused her sexually and physically. And you want to know why she stayed? I'm going to tell you the psychological implications of why people who are abused sexually and physically, why they stay in relationships. So let me just start off by saying, and I have not spoken to Cassie. However, I think she did say on the stand, allegedly, that she was seeing a therapist now, which is also something that I want to point out where she probably gained some clarity. Okay, so let me just start off by saying this. Usually, when you are in a relationship with someone and they are physically abusive to you, but you feel like you love them, like you are in this toxic relationship, because when you're being physically abused and sexually abused, it is a toxic relationship. And so when you're engaging in this relationship, you don't engage in a relationship and stay with someone who you do not like, who you like a little bit. You stay because there's a pull there, because you feel like it's love. But I'm going to go a little step further, and I'm going to clarify that love is a trauma bond usually is formed. So sometimes, victims, they can form this, and it's a psychological trauma bond. So it ain't nothing that you just coming out and saying, please bond with me, even though you kind of yearn it because you feel like there's this connection and you need this person and you almost can't live without this person. But it's because of the psychological trauma that there's a bond that's formed. So the victim forms an intense emotional attachment to the abuser. You got me? And it's because in this relationship, there's alternating abuse and alternating kindness. So usually abusers, they can be kind sometimes, which brings about hope in the victim's mind, and then sometimes they can be abusive. And the abusive is when a victim says, well, I don't want to be here, or I hate it here, I don't like this person. But then all of a sudden, when that person, the same abuser, comes back in front of the victim and goes, oh, they give them excuses like, oh, that was a rough night, or they'll gaslight and say, oh, well, you did this, and so this is why, I did this, so they gaslight them to tell them that whatever their belief is, that they're an abuser, is not true, and they create a new story for them to believe. They deny the reality. That's gaslighting. But then they do that, and so then the abuse, and then they're kind to them. So they may give them something nice. They may have sex, they may stroke them, they may stroke their ego and tell them that they're beautiful and they can't live without them. So for an abuser, they go, oh, okay. So they start to second guess how they really feel, how they feel internally about the abuse, and then they just bond, they just cling on to the kindness, to the hope of what the abuser is saying. And so you would say to me, I'm just imagining, okay, Andrea, so how is it that someone even finds themselves there? Like, why is it that the first time that a woman or man, because this happens to men too, how is it that when they are abused, sexually or physically, they don't just run the first time? Like, what keeps them there? Well, I'm going to start off by telling you it's family of origin trauma. So outside of the trauma bond that can be formed that keeps them there, usually at the root of it, the person, the victim who's there, has experienced some kind of bond, trauma bond like this during childhood. So with one of their caretakers, either their mother, their father or whomever was the major nurturer. So maybe it could be, an uncle, an aunt, or a grandmother, whoever that person was who took care of them, who was supposed to be their nurturers. Well, this behavior was similar to them. Like, this behavior was familiar, it was similar to the behavior that they actually experienced as a child. Now, it may not necessarily have looked like sex, but it was traumatic. And there was some kind of abuse, whether it could have been cussing them out. It could have been hard beatings, but there was some kind of abuse. And it went from, so just hear me on this, the victim probably experienced their caregiver either abusing them in some way, but then on the other hand, also being kind. Right? So being kind to them, and sometimes with feeding them, maybe, showing them acts of kindness with loving them, or maybe buying them clothes or whatever it is that a nurturer or parent would do. But then on the other hand of it, cussing them out, treating them like nothing, dismissing them, maybe physically beating them, which is abuse. You understand? So it was familiar to childhood, which is easy for someone to stay in a relationship like this because they start to rationalize and justify the abuser's behavior. They go back to thinking, well, during childhood, do you just leave somebody you love or someone who loves you? Because if he's telling you, I love you, I don't want you to go anywhere, there's no one else like you, well, that feels good. And for them, psychologically, it feels like love, because during childhood, they would get beaten, but then on the other hand, they would be fed or maybe get school clothes, or you know what I'm saying? Maybe get a hug, maybe not so much. You know what I'm saying? Maybe, I don't know, have nice days where they could just even have a half of a conversation, which for them they saw as kindness. So it's something that you learn in childhood. And it starts with what I call, is my specialty, it's family of origin trauma. So if someone has been traumatized during their childhood, it's really easy to stick like Velcro to a man or a woman who does the same thing, who physically abuses you or sexually abuses you or verbally abuses you on one hand, and then they go back and forth between that, and then sometimes they're kind. Okay, so that's psychologically why people stay in those relationships. Another thing that a person like Cassie could have been going through in this relationship, usually now, I think she said that she was diagnosed with PTSD, post traumatic stress disorder. So from these events that really were traumatic for her, they caused her stress. And since she's living with them and didn't get therapy at the time, so she could kind of, release that trauma, the trauma lives inside of her body and it turned into a disorder. And what that looks like is sometimes you could have, these are the symptoms of PTSD, is you could have flashbacks from the event. You could have nightmares or night terrors from the event. You can sometimes have emotional numbness or detachment when you're moving through the world, but you're feeling like, I can't really love anybody else. I can't really connect to anybody else. I'm kind of shut off as a defense mechanism, which happens after PTSD. Sometimes, when we experience PTSD, when people experience that, you could go through depression. And, that's that feeling of when you have a lack of motivation, this feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of helplessness, some sadness. You can experience anxiety, where you have these panic attacks, where you just feel like you're out of control and uncentered. And drug abuse and drug use is another symptom of PTSD, because when I'm feeling all of these feelings that I don't like, I need to numb myself. And what some people do is they numb themselves with alcohol, they numb themselves with drugs. Okay, some people even numb themselves with food, and that's how they gain a lot of weight. I do believe, allegedly, as Cassie did say while she was on the stand, that she was diagnosed with PTSD. And she also talked a lot about her drug use, her drug abuse, and going to a treatment center to address her sex addiction and her drug addiction. Now, This is so interesting. I'm going to talk a little bit about sex addiction. Hey, family, come on over here because I have something for you. Starting off with a go to guide for keeping your minds healthy and strong. This right here is the Bible to mental health. It's your mental health Bible. The name of it is Six Pillars to Power Up Your Mind and Make Mental Health a Lifestyle. Everything that you need to know about keeping your minds healthy and strong is in this go to guide. Where you get it from? Well, you get it from awisebrown.com/shop. But in this go-to guide, honey, in this mental health Bible, you know what you're going to find out? You're going to find out the benefits of aromatherapy, and how it can shift your mood. But guess what? You don't have to go anyplace else to look for your aromatherapy because your girl's got you, okay? You can get some aromatherapy here. This is aromatherapy is in this candle. This is called a slice of happiness. It makes me tingle, like literally makes me tingle. A slice of happiness. This is a cruelty-free candle with no parabens, no formaldehyde, and no known suspected carcinogenics. Now, you know, you go out here and you find these candles that smell good, but are they good for you? Are they good for your brain? Come on now, get real with yourself. Well, this one smells delicious and it's good for you. Made with essential oils. It's a soy candle. Amazing. You can burn it or you can just walk by and smell it. Lord have mercy, it's so good. Okay, so that's your candle, your aromatherapy, which raises the dopamine in your brain. That's your natural feel good. Neurotransmitters in your brain. All right, y'all. And I'm a part of you. You're a part of me. We are a family. We got hoodies now, and these are unisex hoodies, and they wear well, they wash well, and they feel so good. So you can wear them over your clothes, you know what I'm saying, and look dope, or you can wear them as your clothes with nothing under them, which I like to do often. And when you travel everywhere, I mean, every time I wear them, I'm moving around. People are always asking me whether I'm traveling, going to the supermarket. What's that? Who's that? And I'm like, mental health is a lifestyle. Because see, this is on the back. Okay, they come in white and they come in black. I'm like, join the family. Mental health is a lifestyle podcast. So there you go, family. Don't you ever say that I ain't give you nothing. You get all of these things from awisebrown.com/shop. All right, hey, I got your goods. I got you. You don't have to go anyplace else. I'll see you on the other side. So, sex addiction can be brought on as is a symptom of PTSD. So, for someone who has been sexually abused, during the time that they are sexually abused, and this is not everyone who was sexually abused, okay? But I'm just going to take from Cassie's story, let's just say, we'll call this person Paula, or a person like Cassie, okay? Because we allegedly, okay? So, someone who was sexually abused, and all of a sudden they started to attach to this other person or form psychologically a trauma bond, then even when, because you know, sometimes she would say that she said that she didn't want to have these freak offs. She didn't want to have them. She didn't want to have them. So, and I know that they had started doing these freak offs. I believe it was a long time. So I think it may have started maybe in 2007, maybe before that, don't know, but in my head I'm thinking 2007, and I think like all the way up to 2018. So it was like a long period of time, maybe over 10 years. So in the beginning, right, this man introduced her. This is Cassie's story. She said that allegedly he introduced her to having these sexual escapades where he was a voyager and he would watch her, or she would order the escorts and he would have her order the escorts. And I think she started off by saying that when she did, you know, date him, and this is something that he wanted to do, it was her first time ever doing it. So he exposed her to that. So now you're exposed to this thing, and she really did like this man for whatever reason. So if you say to me, well, she liked him because he was a music mogul, okay. She liked him because he was successful, okay. She liked him because he was rich, okay. She was also an artist, and maybe she thought he could give her opportunity in being close to it, okay. And I'm saying okay because there's many of you out there that if you had the opportunity to date a rich man who was a music mogul, who you thought that could give you all this opportunity, you would probably do it. So it's so easy to judge from where you at, okay? So I'm just saying, okay, those could have been the reasons why she was attracted to him. All right. And yeah, they did say that she cheated on her boyfriend, Ryan Leslie, who she was with at the time, who was also in the industry, and he wasn't as big as Diddy. Okay. All right. So all of those things we could say right, wrong. And that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm not here to judge anybody for being right or for being wrong. That's not it. I am in regards to Diddy or anybody else abusing a woman, a man. You are wrong for that. You are wrong for abusing a woman or a man, okay? And I saw the videotape, so that ain't allegedly. I did see that. So there, I'm going to say you're wrong. I'm going to pass judgment. However, I'm not passing judgment on her liking him. And then even and he was much older than her at the time, but even Diddy liking her because she's a young, beautiful woman, right? She's very pretty, a pretty girl, and she's talented. Okay, so I'm not saying right or wrong on that. I'm talking about the psychological implications. So my point is when he introduced her allegedly to this sexual world, and this was new for her, if she really was intrigued in this man and she wanted to be with this man, what it sounds like is through this case, even if you listen to the text messages, is although she may not have wanted to do these acts, she was acting as if she did, and she was doing them because she wanted to spend time with him. She wanted to spend time with him. And so she knew that, this is my assumption from just listening to the alleged text messages, that when she would reach out to him and she'd put in front of him, do you want to have a freak off? Because she knew she would dangle it like a carrot, that, oh, this would be time, because he was into that, okay? He was into the baby oil, allegedly. He was into watching her have sex with these men, allegedly. He was into what is it, urinating in her mouth, allegedly. All the things, the sores, and he was into all of that, right? Allegedly. So since he was into it, how do you bait a man that you want to be with? A man who seems as if he's interested in you. You give him what he wants. And that, to me, that is what I kind of received from this whole thing, because she was 19 years old when she met him. Okay, so now he introduced her to the world. So now she's doing these things and she's trying to get him. And the more and more she's starting to do them, when she was having these sexual acts, and this really happens also with sex workers, is they can go to a place while they're in the act where they detach from their bodies. There's a disassociation that happens where they can literally do the act and not even really psychologically be present. Like, they don't even know when it's over. It's kind of like being outside of their body. And that is another traumatic response. Then this is another thing that happens. So you can disassociate, but yet and still do the act. And then after you finish with the act, you feel like you've gotten whatever that reward is. So if it's him wanting to stay with you, if it's him wanting to say that he likes you more, or if you're a sex worker, if it's somebody paying you money, you've gotten a reward. So now that's going to make you keep wanting to do the behavior. Not only that, then you start to make this behavior a habit. It starts to be your go-to, just like drugs can start to be your go-to, because now you can use it to numb your reality. And so my belief is Cassie allegedly would disassociate when she'd be having sex with him or all these other men, because it sounded like the other men didn't sound like she disassociated if she'd have sex with him, because allegedly in some of those text messages, she would say, I just want to make love to you. I just want it to be me and you. And allegedly he was like, nah, shorty, you gonna do I taught you to do, that you've been doing. Like, that's what I like. All that you, me, all that, I ain't with all of that. And she kept doing it. But I think that when she would do it, she would disassociate. And then I believe it became habitual. So it became a habit. And she would use it to numb out. So she would use it probably even, if she was stressed or she had these thoughts, she was anxious that she really wanted to be with him, but let me just use my body and disassociate. And this could turn into sex addiction, to where now you start just using sex to also numb out, especially when you've done and you've been exposed to all of these things that you've never even thought of before. But yet, you know how people can do that and keep doing it? It's because they disassociate. They are not in their bodies. They are not present with reality. Okay, so disassociation is another symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. Okay, y'all? And let me tell you this. Let me say this about the cycle of abuse. So the cycle of abuse, it starts with the tension building, the tension, like whatever the thing is, if there's an issue before, or if I want to spend time with you, or if we go back and forth and we yelling and screaming, or if I'm saying this is something that I want, some kind of conflict. So there's some kind of tension that builds, and then there's abuse that happens. And then after the abuse, there's that reconciliation, where the abuser apologizes and promises to change and says that they'll never do it again, where they create hope for the victim. And then guess what? It's a cycle. It starts all over again. There's tension building, and then there's abuse. Then there's reconciliation, where they apologize. They promise to never do it again. They give you a little bit of affection and create this false sense of hope. And you're right back in that cycle of abuse again, which is serious. This is serious. And we're talking about Cassie, and this is serious, and it was serious for Cassie. Thank God she got out of it. But you may know somebody who also may be, engaged in this cycle of abuse, where there is help out there. And at the end of this video, I'm going to put up a number, and I would want you to call to get help. You can get out of it. If you are being trafficked, sexually trafficked, if you are engaging in this cycle of abuse, if you being abused in any way, please call the number on the screen. I will put it up, and please, because there is help. Thank God Cassie did get help. She got help. And I want y'all to remember that Cassie, it did not come to trial because she wanted to, take him to court and do all these things. Like, no. She was done with her trial. This was the prosecution who put Cassie up on the stand. And everybody's acting like she's winning or losing or winning. Just listen to her story. This woman has been abused. Hold your judgment sometimes. Hold your judgment, especially for victims. Don't victim shame. Even if you might think she had sex too quick, or you might think she's not the smartest, or you may, all these things you may think. But the reality is this: even if she's all those things, or she may not be, was she being abused? Well, let's take care of the abuser. Let's stop the abuse, and let's get people the help that they need. And before I jump off, because I do want to tell you that there is help for post-traumatic stress disorder in regards to abuse, okay? Sexual abuse in regards to physical abuse. But I wanted to say this before I tell you what it is, what the type of therapy is that you would get for this that is helpful. I just want to say I talked to my attorney today. And I said, I'm going to have my attorney on too to break some of this stuff down. But I talked to my attorney today. And one thing that my attorney asked me with her smart, she's so smart. She said to me, well, so in regards to the whole trauma bond and, Cassie staying in this relationship, why did she stay? She said, and I was telling her about the trauma bond, like, the whole thing, how it's a psychological bond is actually formed, and it goes back and forth, right? There's some attachment. It alters, it alternates between abuse and kindness, and you get pulled in. Remember I told you that? Okay. But she said to me, well, what's the difference? Is that the same as Stockholm Syndrome? And I said, no, the difference, and I want to tell y'all in case you're thinking, did Cassie have Stockholm Syndrome? Now, allegedly, because I don't know Cassie, but as I am looking at the psychological implications here, no, I do not believe she had Stockholm Syndrome, because Stockholm Syndrome is evident when someone has been kidnapped, when there's like a hostage situation, or someone has been held in extreme captivity. Okay. So if they are like a hostage or a victim, then the hostage or the victim, right? This is not a love thing. They weren't in love. They weren't in a relationship. This is literally, they were absconded. They were a victim. They were a hostage held somewhere against their will. Okay. And when a hostage or a victim develops empathy or affection or the sense of loyalty for the person who's holding them captive. It's also psychological, but it's what happens. And why is it that happens psychologically? Well, a lot of times what that is a defense mechanism. Because you think about it, if someone held you against their will somewhere and you cannot get out, come on, the brain is miraculous. So the brain works for us. And what it does is when we're in these situations, before it just kind of just goes out like berserk, before the brain blows up, it goes into this little thing called the defense mechanism. And the defense mechanism is to reduce the amount of fear that the body is going through so that it can sustain itself while that person is being captive. So it's there, it reduces the fear and it increases this sense in your head of that there's a chance of survival. Okay, there's a chance of survival. So that's what Stockholm Syndrome represents. Okay, it's the way out for the brain so that it can cope while it's caught in a situation that where they're trapped or held like a hostage. Okay, so that's very different than a trauma bond or being in a cycle of abuse with someone who you love, who you care for, who you want to be with so badly. That's totally different. That's not Stockholm Syndrome, okay? Because usually Stockholm Syndrome is with someone who's holding you captive and you don't want to be there. Two totally different things, but that was a brilliant question. And I will also say this: the healing and recovery can come by therapy. Go to therapy. So EMDR therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and somatic therapy are therapies that can work and add to your healing journey if you've ever been sexually abused or physically abused by anyone in your life. Okay, family. I just wanted to jump in and give you the psychological implications of why a woman would stay in a relationship with someone who she claims is sexually abusing her and physically abusing her and sex trafficking her for over 10 years. There you go, family. Please try to understand humans instead of just judging them and discarding them. But I will say abusers need to pay for abusing others. And if payment looks like being locked up, locked away so they don't do it to someone else, and getting treatment, I agree that people who are locked away for creating crime should be rehabilitated with some treatment and some therapy. Don't just lock people away to lock them away. No, you have to treat those people too because they are humans. They are our people. Okay, all right, family. That is another episode of the Mental Health is a Lifestyle podcast with your girl, Andrea Wise-Brown and family. I will see you next week on the next episode. I love you as always.